Willie McGinest, joining us on the Rich Eisen Show. And Tom Brady turned to you, he said, "I love you, man." And I actually liked that moment. And some people were hating you on it, saying that there's a conflict of interest. Let's face it, you have 3 rings. They are Patriots rings.
Right.
But Tom Brady turns to you and says, "I love you, man." Just talk to us a little bit about the relationship that you had with him, because he did credit you for helping mold him into the man that he is now.
Well, a lot of players, and Tom's one of those guys that we kind of had a nucleus, and we kind of had a group of guys that Bill Belichick thankfully kept us, in the locker room because we fit the mold he was trying to portray for that team and had the character. And Tom was one of those guys who came in under the radar, 6th-round draft pick. Nobody knew he was going to be Tom Terrific. And he kind of followed the script that we kind of laid, the blueprint that we laid, the hard work, the getting in early, staying late, study habits, being a student of the game, all those things we were trying to pass on. He was one of those guys that grasped that as soon as he came in.
This is the Rich Eisen Show. I'm Suzy Shuster, in for Rich Eisen, joined by Willie McGinest and John C. McGinley for the entirety of this hour, the second hour of the show. It's funny. You and I have known each other for 20 years.
Yeah.
You and Chris Slade were the linebacking core back in the day when I was Dan Shaughnessy's intern. And so we've watched the progression of this team, and we watch how the team changes by the personality of the quarterback. Obviously, when Drew Bledsoe was the quarterback, when you were there in the beginning, it was a quieter, it was a different kind of leadership. How do you compare and contrast the leadership changes that you've seen there, and also how he's changed?
Well, Drew was a great leader. I mean, I want to start off by saying that, and he showed a lot of his leadership qualities when he lost his position to Tom, and being a great professional. But I think Tom is a little bit different in personality. Tom picked up a lot of those great habits from Drew as well. Drew was a great teacher for Tom, and like you said, everybody was on the same page. So Tom kind of picked a little bit of everything, but he had his own identity. He knew where he wanted to go. The work ethic came because he was always kind of slighted, whether it was at Michigan, whether it's being a 6th-round pick, not being a high draft choice. He understood that he had to work his tail off to catapult himself into a position where he is now. And once he got that position, he always said, "I'm never letting anything take this away from me." And he always wanted to play at the highest level, and not just for himself. The most important thing is for his teammates. He didn't want to let anybody down. So the special thing about Tom is you see the relationship. It's tough to get a lot out of him because that's the way it is over there. They're going to make you figure it out. They're not going to give you any bulletin board material. They're not going to give you any insight of what you may see or what may happen, and you get it. But the relationships that guys build, and I look at this team and I look at Seattle, they have those same type of relationships. They do the same things. Now, the personalities may be a little bit more because you see it more, because they talk a little bit more, but the camaraderie amongst the players, how the players feel about each other, they really care. They spend time. They work out together. They push each other. They're competitive. These teams are similar in a lot of ways, and that's what makes it such a great game.
We're going to see deception and trickery all around, I think, Johnson.
I thought it was really interesting when Willie against the Philadelphia Eagles in your Super Bowl, when your defense completely shifted. Belichick and you and the defensive coordinators, you came up the defensive end, and it completely scrambled Donovan and the whole Philadelphia scheme. What is the most likely, in your crystal ball, what are the chess moves that Bill will make defensively against the Seattle Seahawks?
Well, the one thing that you got to understand, going into a game and playing against a team like Seattle, you want to take away its weapons. And the biggest weapons is Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch, which becomes either the run game or Russell scrambling and throwing the ball down the field. Now, against Philadelphia, we had ran that defense, but that wasn't our base defense. We didn't run it a lot. Our basic defense was a 3-4, and we got into a defense, something like we call a rush defense, which kind of looked like a 4-3 hybrid. And first play of the game, Donovan calls a timeout because he had never saw that defense.
It scrambled his eggs.
He didn't know what was going on. And you got to expect that with the Patriots, every single game is a different game plan. It's a different adjustment. You're not going to see the same things because they don't just say, here's our blanket game plan, whether it's offense or defense. Everything is catered to the team they're playing against.
And how do you guys stay mentally agile enough to be able to adapt your skill set to whatever Bill is introducing that week?
Well, You got to be smart, one. You got to be able to adjust. That's part of being a pro, and I think that's what Seattle does really well, too, and New England. You got to be able to adjust. And when you come in on Monday, everybody already knows that there's something that's going to be different. You may incorporate certain plays or certain game plans that affect the team you played against before, but expect to see something different catered directly towards the team you're playing against.
Could I ask you one other Tom Brady leadership question?
Of course.
Is there ever a leadership conflict with the leader on offense, which presumably in New England is Tom Brady,
right,
and the leadership on your defenses between the great linebackers and you? Is there ever, and is it a good thing, is there ever a competition for top dog? Or is that a position that it's better to lateral to somebody else?
No, I think we all have mutual respect for each other. And I was a captain on defense, but so was Rodney. So was Seymour, who was younger, who grown into that role. So was Vrabel in his own. So was Brewski. We all had mutual respect for each other, and we all pushed and held each other accountable. So if I made a mistake or I did something that cost the team or was hurting the team, any one of those guys, anybody could come up to me and give it to me. We didn't hold back. We didn't matter. We wasn't thin-skinned, and we took it a certain way. Now, we also gave Tom a hard time.
You read my mind. So it was a two-way street.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In practice, we would go against the first offense and push them and make sure that they were getting the right looks because the game was that important to us. So we get in there and rattle his cage, and Tom's so competitive, it turned out to an all-out game in practice, the first defense versus the first offense.
Is that true?
Yeah, it is. And that's why that he's so competitive, because of early times like that in our careers where it just was a constant competition, whether it's who drank the most water, who got in the weight room the earliest. If you left early after practice, you was going to hear about it. Like, who's the last one out the doors? Who watched more film? Who ran more gassers during practice? I mean, everything was a competition.
And chip on his shoulders come up twice today. once with Sean Alexander, who I'm paraphrasing, but he said us against the world.
Yeah.
And you referenced Tom coming in as a number 6 with a chip on his shoulder, him against the world. Did you come in even as a number 1? Does everyone come into the NFL, and is it in your best interest to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder?
I think you should, regardless of your draft status or what position you're in. If you're the greatest player on the team, I think you got to find ways to motivate yourself. And even when we were on our run in New England, we were winning all these games, every single week we tried to find anything. I don't care if it was a quote from a player, something you said a year ago. We wanted to find anything to find a reason to hate you that week, to get going, to motivate us, or whatever. And
because
Bill Belichick,
ambivalence at your level would be death.
Bill Belichick was great. He was the master at that. Bill Parcells was the master at that. So Seattle, they feel the same way. Richard Sherman, late round pick. Russell Wilson, 3rd round pick. I was too small. You know, Marshawn Lynch, he was a rebel. He had to get out of Buffalo. Michael Bennett, they didn't want me in Tampa Bay. I mean, you can go on and on.
That's great.
And they feed off of that. So when I say these two teams are similar, in a lot of ways, they are. That's what's going to make this Super Bowl a great, great game.
And you've got a coach in Pete Carroll who, as we know, has that chip on his shoulder going against this New England team. They'll let him go. I'm curious, we have about 60 seconds left, and we have you for the entirety of this second hour,
Yep.
but what are the similarities that you see in those two guys, in Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick?
Well, Bill Belichick, coming from Cleveland, they didn't think he was the right fit, so he got a second chance in New England. Pete Carroll was in New England, and you know, we didn't fare well. We had a decent time. This is 4 years there, and but Pete, when he went to USC, he was the best, and he dominated the collegiate level.
He sure did.
And I think it was always in the back of his mind that I can do this. He had to go away and learn and learn some things and step his game up and make some adjustments. But he always felt that he had what it took to win in the NFL. And I think that was his motivating thing to get him back in the league and show everybody, which he, coming off the Super Bowl, I think he's done that.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.